Monday Night Raw is taped before a live studio audience.
One of the reasons for our success, of course, is we change with the time. Times need a changing. We do just that. We change with the time. Despite one man's brilliance, despite one man's creativity, one man's vision. Can't do it all by myself anymore, that's for sure.
We're out here tonight because we haven't been doing a very good job for you lately. We haven't been doing the one thing that my father has always taught us to do, and that's listen to our audience. We've let middle managers air their petty grievances. We've been suffocating our superstars, and all of that is going to change, and it starts tonight. We're off to a fresh start.
The days of absentee management are over. As of now, the four of us will be taking back Monday Night Raw.
And that goes for SmackDown Live as well, because the four of us are personally responsible to ensuring that all of you have the best possible experience that there is.
We're going to empower our superstars and empower all of you.
And more importantly, we're going to give you what you want. Something new, something fresh. In coming weeks and months, you will be seeing new faces, new superstars, new matchups. As of now, you are the authority.
And as long as we give you less of what you don't want and more of what you do, WWE will always be then, now, and forever.
Welcome to another episode of the Jam Report. I am your host, GoodOlJM. Episode 38 is now on the air, coming to you from CSB Studios in Tampa, Florida, the birthplace of pro wrestling. And if you wanted my opinion of what we all heard back this week on Monday Night Raw, well, I guess rewind a little bit and you will know my exact opinion because, man, I really wanted to give WWE the benefit of the doubt. I mean, in a way I still am, and I'll explain in a little while. But it's not exactly what the cry out was for. I mean, they said all the right things, well, mostly the right things. They once again made promises. We'll see how long they last. Pretty much in short, they've done this before. They've done this many, many times before. It's just been a long time. And, of course, as history will show, they never really stuck to those promises. Somehow, whether if there's any truth behind Triple H's line there of absentee management, and people had just been too laid back or slacking off, or, hey, we're making this money anyway, who cares? As long as the job is done and the company's still running and blah, blah, blah. It's it's a horrible, terrible mentality to have, unfortunately. Things could still be working out long term, but in reality, without you even noticing, the interest in this case will be falling. Viewership has been falling. And there were many, many voices crying out, and they've had it. However, I'm a bit disappointed, and I know I'm not the only one, in Sacramento, where apparently many have voiced their opinion online about, oh yeah, we'll let them know how we really feel and blah blah blah. And McMahon gets Vince, that is, gets cheered like he always does. There was some boos there after his theme song finished playing, and it wasn't mentioned here. It wasn't mentioned from that YouTube clip where fans were booing noticeably. McMahon turned to them and said, "Hey, don't do that. I don't want to hear that." And I'm sure that'll be edited off the network version next month. And there was some boos, and McMahon played to them and said, "Well, I just won't deal with you guys per se because he's being booed." And in hindsight, yeah, why should he? But wouldn't surprise me if those are the same fans that were crying out on social media and saying things like, "Well, we don't like what we're seeing. You guys suck. Raw sucks. The storyline sucks. A lot of lack of character development sucks," and so on and so forth. So they knew how to work the audience, obviously. They said everything that they needed to be said, kind of the sorry, not sorry approach to it. And here's my benefit of the doubt, where it kind of came at a bad time of the year, that is. I mean, Christmas is next week. Following week is New Year's. And people will be on vacation. Raw and SmackDown this coming week is already pre-taped, and the results are already out there. So it's a very good chance these numbers for Christmas episodes of Raw and SmackDown will be very low. And can't really blame the entirety of that number, or those numbers, I should say, because of lack of interest, because it's already taped and people can just go online and read off spoilers, which I will have, but I'll give fair warning when I get to that point. So we pretty much ended up getting what we've always gotten. The McMahon's taken over. How's that any different than when they weren't around, at least not on television? Vince, mostly. Stephanie was starting to get more of a backstage role, pretty much to a point where she wasn't needed on screen, if ever. And for a long time, that took away from the moving forward, if you will, or the development of female or women roster members from SmackDown and Raw. And she got herself involved. The title wasn't even the forefront. It's like, who is she? It was more of who is she gonna screw this time, and then the following week follow up with that previous screw up, and then someone else gets screws up the following month, and that just came stale and more and more. Shane, on the other hand, on SmackDown, well, again, he was only on air when needed, depending on storyline, and was more behind the scenes. Last I heard, Shane McMahon reality doesn't have an authority figure. It's just an on-air talent at this point. And Stephanie actually is, one of the creatives, one of the writers. She would overwrite everything from creative that's handed down to her. Hence why we had a lot of cringeworthy lines, and not to mention the most recent dismemberment line. But yeah, she rewrote that for herself. And of course, Triple H, who legit is the COO of the WWE. He's come a long way. People still question his rise to the top of how he got there, even when he was just a talent and was around creative and the producers and all to learn to craft his knowledge of behind the scenes. And, the days of the Click, days of being in McMahon's ear along with Shawn Michaels, and of course getting involved with the daughter, and he is where he is now. I understand, it's it is what it is, and things worked out the way they did, and maybe one of those meant to be scenarios. And he's done good, Triple H has, with NXT, and he was able to separate all that. When he's NXT, he's working with NXT at Full Sail or wherever they are touring around. And with Raw and SmackDown, of course, he's there as well, having his input. And at the end of the day, it's all Vince McMahon's final call. I don't know how many more times myself or anyone can say that. He makes the final call. What goes on there, as far as what we see and hear. So we'll see exactly what these changes are, when they will happen. My guess would be, again, I'll cover this in a little while, but my guess would be after the holidays are over. They could have waited to make this announcement after the holidays. If you think about it, why come out on your last episode, live episode of Raw and Smackdown, make your announcement, and then not have the changes you promised? But I guess that's why Triple H tucked in that little line there, in the weeks coming, in the months. So we gotta wait now. But thanks for listening. Thanks for acknowledging everything that is wrong. But not sure if this is exactly what it is that needed to be fixed in this manner. This is just me. Like you, I'm waiting around to see exactly what these changes would be, all these promises, if they're going to be kept. I guess we'll take it one day at a time for now, but until proven otherwise, the opening of the JM Report this time is my exact opinion of what I saw and heard this past Monday night on Raw. TLC was this past Sunday night, and I gotta say, whether there were some hints of these changes to come, we saw a very good show. I gotta say, much better than expected. Little concern as far as the orders of which match will be on the kickoff and the main card, and more importantly, who will main event the show. So during the kickoff show, there was only one kickoff show. We saw a couple of matches, and it was announced the day of. Some people say the night before, but I think it was the day of on WWE.com. Buddy Murphy defended and retained his Cruiserweight Championship versus Cedric Alexander. Elias and Bobby Lashley had a ladder match, and this is one of those situations where they didn't even know what rules to come up with. They changed it on the fly, or they went back to the previous one. It was just ridiculous. I wasn't even sure last week. My impression was this ladder match that had a guitar suspended over the ring. Once you grab it, you can use it against your opponent. Again, similar to the nightstick on a pole match with the Nails and the Big Boss Man back at Survivor Series 92. But no, you climb the ladder similar like a championship match. You climb the ladder and grab the guitar, and that's it. You win. No need to use the guitar on your opponent. You just had to grab the guitar. What significance did the guitar have with Bobby Lashley? I don't know, but I guess we'll get to that when I cover the Raw review. So Elias defeated Bobby Lashley. He climbed up the ladder, grabbed the guitar, and was able to retrieve it and was declared the winner. Not much of a match here. Barely went over 6 minutes. But at the end of the day, Lashley had the last laugh as he would break the guitar across Elias's back and would leave a little rush. So not much here. The main card kicked off with Fabulous Truth, Carmella and R-Truth, as they took on Alicia Fox and Jinder Mahal. The finals of the Mixed Match Challenge, where the winners will be number 30 in their respective Royal Rumbles and an all-expense-paid trip to wherever they want to go in the world. Well, via submission, Carmella will defeat Alicia Fox, and R-Truth and Carmella will win Season 2 of Mixed Match Challenge. And when interviewed shortly after the match, apparently R-Truth put in the paperwork to where this all-expensive paid trip is going to be. And Carmella had no idea, so Truth wanted to surprise her, and come to find out, all expensive paid to Stamford, Connecticut at WWE headquarters. And Carmella was dumbfounded. And seriously, of all the places, seriously? Yeah. This just adds more to R-Truth's character, and he just would do and say things out of nowhere. But hey, at least they still have that 7-minute dance break. 7 minutes, God, no. 7-second dance break. So a lot of good things yet to come with Fabulous Truth. For the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, we saw a triple threat match between the Bar, defending champions, against the New Day and the Usos. The Bar retains. An okay match. I mean, there wasn't much more that they could have done, except I noticed that the Usos were out of the match for the majority of it. I was thinking Is someone injured, or is this part of the story just to keep them out, as the Bar and the New Day were handling most of the matches, but eventually the Bar were victorious and retained the SmackDown Tag Team titles. In one of the questionable matches, even though it was still heavily advertised, but didn't really deliver. Let me explain. Of course, we all knew Braun Strowman just a couple of weeks ago had successful elbow surgery, and again, even during that time was still being promoted to appear at TLC versus Baron Corbin in a TLC match, where if Corbin were to win, he would become the permanent general manager of Raw, or if Braun Strowman would win, not only would Corbin not become the GM of Raw, but Strowman would get his Universal Championship match versus Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumble. And what seemed to be an eternity, and by a couple of stopwatches, it was exactly 16 minutes of, I guess, the public humiliation. Sorry, I get tongue-tied sometimes. Of Baron Corbin. Corbin comes out, and he had Heath Slater as the referee for the match, and was trying to pull off his promise where he was going to win by forfeit. He knew Strowman was still recovering from elbow surgery and will not appear at TLC. So Corbin was trying to get Heath to start a 10 count, only for Braun Strowman's music to hit, and here comes Strowman in a sling. Obviously still recovering, and never, at least I didn't get the word that Strowman was cleared medically to compete, but again, still heavily promoted. So Strowman gets on the mic and basically says, like, well, this is a no DQ match as a TLC match, and anything goes. And nowhere in the rules does it say that he can't have help from other people. So in the background, as Strowman was speaking, you see Finn Balor and Bobby Roode and Chad Gable and Apollo Crews all appearing ringside with chairs. Corbin again, or Corbin at this point would escape, would want no part of this, and out comes Kurt Angle, music and all. It gets dragged back to the ring, and everyone and anyone who had a chair just beat the crap out of Baron Corbin. A couple of angle slams. Strowman, in the meanwhile, is in the background, in the corner, just standing watching. And yeah, the bell rang at some point. So Strowman, after this nearly 10-minute beatdown, 16 minutes altogether, comes over, just simply puts his foot over Baron Corbin. Heath Slater counts to 3, and Strowman will now get his Universal Championship match at the Royal Rumble, and Baron Corbin is out. Yeah, gladly, because more of the visual of Baron Corbin getting the snot kicked out of him, beaten out of him, chair shot out of him. I was like, yeah, we'll take that, even though this was supposed to be a TLC match. But yeah, we get it. This man can't even swing a chair. Better safe than sorry, Strowman. But yeah, good match for what it was. Entertaining for sure. In the tables match, Natalya took on Ruby Riott. Early in the match, Natalya, unintentionally, but worked out in her favor, took out Liv Morgan as she was standing on the apron, and Natalya was about to tackle Ruby Riott off the apron. Instead, Morgan took the bullet, and Natalya shoulder blocks Liv into a table that was set ringside, and she went crashing through this table. I mean, wow. I still get a little cringe-worthy when I see women go through tables. I mean, it's not something we see all the time, and I don't know how much training they get when it comes to something like this. But yeah, I guess instinctively, a lot of us get that way. And not long after, Natalya would grab Sarah Logan and body slam her through another table on the opposite side of the ring, making it one-on-one with Ruby Riott. And Ruby would try to manipulate Natalya by showing her the table that she's going to go through with the image of Jim the Animal Neidhart on the table that she brought out. But the tables turned, no pun intended, when Natalya was able to reach down under the ring, pull out first, I think it was first the table with Ruby Riott's image on it, and then pull out Jim the Animal Neidhart's old jacket from SummerSlam 1990. So Natalya places it on, or puts it on herself, I should say, throws the table back in the ring, and would powerbomb Ruby off the second rope through the table, and then Tyler gets the win in this tables match. Pretty good, entertaining match, I got to say. Finn Balor would defeat Drew McIntyre with a little help of Dolph Ziggler on the outside, who did not see coming with a super kick, and Balor would hit the coup de grace for the win. Afterwards, there will be a backstage interview with Finn Balor, not appreciating Dolph Ziggler's help, which he did not ask for, nor did he want it. And a fight ensued, and they will eventually have a match the next night on Raw, which I'll cover in a little while. Rey Mysterio will defeat Randy Orton in a chairs match. It was what it was. Nothing significant here, nothing too crazy spots. I mean, just chairs. At least, my opinion, nothing out of the ordinary here for a chairs match that involves Randy Orton. I mean, he's like the chairman, if you will, of those props. Ronda Rousey and Nia Jax had a pretty good match, much better than I was hoping for. As, of course, Nia Jax was showing her dominance and the power and the strength, while Ronda was trying to chop down a tree. But Ronda would powerbomb Nia Jax off the second rope, similar to Natalya with Ruby Riott earlier, and would get the victory. Tamina wasn't much of a factor in this, although she did provide a couple of distraction points, but not enough. But Ronda retains the Raw Women's title. Daniel Bryan would defeat AJ Styles to retain the WWE Championship in one of the longest matches of the night, nearly 24 minutes. And it was much better. We'll talk about physical. These guys really laid in their kicks, their chops, their forearms. Very, very physical, reminiscing when they were both in ROH and even Styles when he was with New Japan. Very nice, I guess, strong style match, if you will, for the American audience. And I enjoyed it really well. One of the better matches of the night for sure. And Daniel once again retained. Dean Ambrose, with the surprise of the night, would defeat Seth Rollins. As the story here was, Ambrose was in Rollins' head and couldn't really concentrate or focus in the match. And this gave the opening for Ambrose to deliver a gut kick and dirty deeds and win and become the new Intercontinental Champion. Even though there were a couple of boring chants in the crowd, I disagree with that. If it was a pacing issue, okay, maybe. But otherwise, I thought it was a great match. And, couldn't really ask for more. I don't understand where exactly that came from, or the fact that at that point in time, they were just bored for the sake of being bored and just took it out on this match. But thankfully, all that changed as the main event was the Triple Threat TLC match for the SmackDown Women's Championship, as Asuka, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte Flair took part in a very physical match. These women took each other to town. There's a spot where Charlotte speared Asuka through the barricade near ringside by the timekeeper table. Not all the way, as the barricade got caught, I believe, on one of the little, on the bellkeeper's desk there. Got caught, so it didn't fall flat. But we get the idea what was going to happen there. Charlotte Flair with a crazy moonsault from the top rope onto Becky and Asuka. Once again, no one catches her. Another dangerous and painful-looking spot where Becky Lynch set up a ladder on the outside just over one of the announce tables. Had Asuka and Charlotte laid out, but Asuka moved out the way, and Charlotte took the full force and the full body weight of Becky onto her sternum. And it was obviously Charlotte was hurt, maybe bruised ribs, or just had the wind knocked out of her. But they cut the audio for a little while. Probably Charlotte was just cursing her head off how painful she was in. But she continued the match. And then we see at the end, it was Charlotte and Becky on top of the ladder, struggling to get to the top to reach for that championship belt hanging. All of a sudden, we see Ronda Rousey come down. As she mentioned earlier, that Payback was a bitch and that it was coming for both Charlotte and Becky. Also failed to mention earlier, after her match, Nia Jax was confronted by Becky Lynch and got punched in the face and thrown off to the side. And Becky Lynch told Nia to keep her name out of her mouth. Or out of her mouth. Sorry, bad accent. And back to the match here. Ronda gets in the ring. Both women realize who's there, knock knock, and Ronda would shove the ladder off to the side and making Becky and Charlotte fall to the ground and out of the ring. And here's what Asuka took full advantage. Reset the ladder, climbs up, no one there to interfere, no one there to intercept. Asuka becomes the new SmackDown Women's Champion at TLC in a TLC match, defeating Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair. And honestly, I was expecting this. A bit of a surprise that it was Asuka the winner. I mean, I wanted Asuka to win, but before these changes, before these promises were made, the next night on Raw, I was a little bit skeptical, and if the title was going to change hands, I was thinking that maybe Charlotte was going to get it. Either way, I would not have been surprised, but feel much better the fact that it was Asuka that walked away here the champion. And what a year she's had, winning the first ever Women's Royal Rumble, gets a title match at WrestleMania against Charlotte Flair, would not win, thus ending her losing streak, and then just been relegated to tag team matches on SmackDown with Naomi for the most part. And assuming going off the reaction before Survivor Series where Becky Lynch had to choose her successor for a match versus Ronda Rousey, the crowd went nuts when she went face-to-face with Asuka, which I guess could have been the logical choice. But storyline said, no, we'll go with Charlotte. Keeping in mind that Asuka got that huge ovation. We got something here. No kidding, you've been having something there with Asuka. Just let loose. Let her go. Let her do her thing. But maybe I should just lower this a little bit. Here we go. Yeah, no more notifications. And that was your TLC review. Again, I got to say, much better show than expected. Definitely gets a few more points by allowing the women to main event a TLC pay-per-view. Not the first time they've done a main event with the women, but it's been a while. That's what I'm trying to say. And they definitely deserved it after Evolution, after Survivor Series, where everyone's saying, why aren't the women main eventing? Their stories make more sense. So let me get into Raw here and back up a little with the announcement of the new era, or the new era. If anyone wants to, do a spinoff of the old NWO theme song and just add in new era instead of the new world order, feel free. Well, again, given the benefit of the doubt because it is the end of the year and that Raw and SmackDown next week is pre-taped, Vince opens up the show with, of course, a bunch of cheers, and this made a lot of people very disappointed with Sacramento. Bruce eventually came out, but Vince jumped on it by saying he didn't want to hear it. It's a far cry from the Monday Night Raw just a few months ago, where McMahon was coming out to a chorus of boos and chants of Roman sucks at Vince. And like, oh, Roman Reigns sucks? Well, I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that. Where was that crowd? I don't remember where it took place, but had it been back in the same arena in the same city, I would have expected a whole different reaction than what we got here. But that's not a hero there. Out comes Stephanie, and then Triple H, and then Shane, and they all point out their mistakes and promise to do better, to listen to the fans. They'll get what we want and more. No more absentee managements. The matches that we want to see, the new faces and more, and better matches. Does this include the bad production we've been getting and commentators? I mean, the fans are now the authority, right? So, yes, bullshit. In short, sorry, not sorry reaction. Again, I mean, that's how I took it. To give the fans not exactly what we asked for, that being more of the McMahons taking over the shows on air, but it would smooth out very little. I hope so. They also mentioned that the automatic rematch clause is basically not active right now. Just probably to change it up a little bit as to not have repeated matches over and over again every week, every month on pay-per-views especially, which is a plus. But eventually they'll have to go back to that rematch clause, automatic that is. And this goes across both shows as Shane mentioned. Raw and SmackDown will be getting this. Baron Corbin would come out beaten and battered from the night before, all those chair shots, basically asking to be the GM of Raw. But instead, Vince McMahon sets up a match where if he would win, Baron Corbin, that is, he would get his wish of becoming the general manager of Monday Night Raw, but he had to win a no disqualification handicap match against Kurt Angle, Bobby Roode, Chad Gable, Apollo Crews, and have Heath Slater as the special referee. This was the public execution of Baron Corbin, as after 2 Angle slams, 1 through a table, they get the windfall. They get the win here, as Heath Slater got the 3 count, and Baron Corbin will not be the general manager of Monday Night Raw, as they apparently have done away with GMs for now. And yeah, I'll get there. We will see Finn Balor take on Dolph Ziggler, as from the results of the night before, where the beef started, unfortunately ending in a double disqualification as Drew McIntyre interfered, laying in Claymore kicks to both men, and this will lead into a triple threat match for next week's show. The new Intercontinental Champion Dean Ambrose will come out to have Seth Rollins make an appearance, call them out, no showed, and Dean Ambrose was accompanied by 4 men in gas masks, and again, no show from Seth Rollins. So Ambrose basically said, okay, forget that. I'm issuing an open challenge to anyone that's not Seth Rollins. And out came Tyler Breeze, fresh off his failed open challenge match versus NXT North American champion Ricochet last week on NXT. Ambrose would retain with a kick to the gut and dirty deeds, and Tyler Breeze once again fails an open challenge match. All of a sudden, Rollins' music hits, and 3 of the 4 gas mask men would head over to the bottom of the ramp, seemingly to intercept Seth Rollins. But and I saw this coming. I did. Pretty predictable for me, but anyway, the 4th member of the gas mask team ended up being Seth Rollins, as he jumped into the ring, super kicks Dean Ambrose, and runs away, as the other 3 gas mask guys would jump in and try to beat down on Seth Rollins, but everybody gets a super kick. Everybody gets beaten down as Dean Ambrose runs away. An updated call-up graphic now, as besides Lars Sullivan, we are expecting EC3, Nikki Cross, Heavy Machinery, and Lacey Evans all to be called up real soon, again more than likely after the New Year's, to the main roster. Unofficial, even Lars Sullivan, we weren't sure exactly which show he'll end up on, but now we have 5 other call-ups, all from NXT, and I'm still a little concerned. We've all seen up to this point, not all, but the mass majority of call-ups from NXT haven't been really delivering. So if I were them, I would be really concerned, or at least voice an opinion of concern and ask questions. I would assume, as a contracted or independent contracted performer, you have a right to voice your opinion and speak up on certain things. I'm not saying, no, just make me the world champion on night 1. No. But as far as directions, as far as opinions, they're the ones performing the characters. So they would have to have some say of what direction they will go and how to perform certain tasks, certain promos, and, all points in between. At least I would think. I would think of all the 6 altogether that are being called up, that EC3 would have a say on certain things. Maybe even Nikki Cross. Of the 6, I would say the most popular call-up right now is Nikki Cross, who unfortunately did not have a spot at Evolution, but she was there for the announcement. Go figure. In related news, none are quite the experience that the Velveteen Dream is, but the Dream has been in NXT for quite some time, and even wore tights that read "Call Me Up Vince" at TakeOver Brooklyn this year. And following his omission from the list of call-ups, Dream sent out a stream of tweets urging his fans to use their voice and, quote, see who really is listening. It's not his voice, Vince's, to call to make. It's yours. So let your voices be heard. Hashtag call Dream up. However, it now seems that the Velveteen Dream has deleted all these tweets and may and may see them after the new year on a live television as far as the call-ups go. And yeah, again, that's something that looks like will be the right thing to do, especially, again, if the Raw and SmackDowns of this week's are pre-taped. So how exactly are you going to squeeze them in there when it's already in the can? But Bobby Lashley and Leo Rush performed a concert of sorts, playing off the attack on Elias the night before after their ladder match. And Lashley was playing the same guitar that was broken over Elias's back. And not long did it take for Elias to appear from behind and break another guitar over Bobby Lashley's back. And both heels will skirmish, and Elias was left alone in the ring. We would then see video packages, first here with the returning Sami Zayn, will returning soon after double shoulder surgery. That's got to be crazy. And then later on tonight, we will see a return package for Kevin Owens, who had double knee surgery. Both men have almost simultaneously had these surgeries done. Obviously, well, maybe not so obvious, but at least spending around the same amount of time during physical therapy and rehab to return. It wasn't clear which of the two was more serious. Honestly, it's hard to tell. I mean, shoulder surgery is no joke, nor is knee surgery. But to have them both worked on at the same time, allegedly, well, one after another, it is just crazy. But hopefully, both sets of shoulders and knees have the same amount of recovery time. And it's been a while. I'll say I think it was this happened after SummerSlam, so the minimum amount of time is about 6 months, my understanding is. But, why push it? Why rush it? And maybe not see Sami or Kevin Owens immediately after the New Year's, but shortly after. I dare say in time for Royal Rumble. But even then, have to play it safe. In the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match to determine the number one contenders for the Raw Tag Team Championships against Bobby Roode and Chad Gable, AOP, the B-Team, and the Lucha House Party will fall to the Revival, who got the win over Bo Dallas. And I think this is the one of many cries to see change in, especially after Rollins mentioned the misuse of the Revival team. So thanks for listening. And by the way, the tag team title match is next week on the pre-tape show of Raw. Baron Corbin would interrupt a backstage promo of Seth Rollins, and Rollins didn't like what he heard, and he punches out Corbin, laid him out, and this will lead to their match next week on Raw, Seth Rollins versus Baron Corbin. The remainder of Raw will be solely focused on the women of Monday Night Raw, as Ronda Rousey will hit the ring and basically issue an open challenge to anyone in the Raw women's locker room. All of a sudden, we cut to the gorilla position, and all of the women of the roster are there screaming and yelling at Tyson Kidd, who apparently is still with the WWE. I've always known this. I just wasn't aware of what his new role was, and apparently is of a producer. And they were all there, including Tyson Kidd's own wife, Natalia, yelling and screaming at him to play their music because they are the ones that want to challenge Ronda for the championship. And all of a sudden you see Stephanie McMahon show up behind them and escorts all the women out to the staging area and issues a gauntlet match where the winner will face Ronda Rousey at next week's pre-taped Raw for the Raw Women's title. So we first had Alicia Fox take on Bayley. Bayley would eliminate Alicia, followed by Dana Brooke. Mickie James would then come in to eliminate Bayley, followed by Ember Moon eliminating Mickie James. Natalia, in succession, would eliminate Ember Moon, Ruby Riott, and finally Sasha Banks to win the gauntlet match that went nearly the last hour of Monday Night Raw, which was great, by the way. One of the better gauntlet matches we've seen in a long time, especially involving all of the women of Raw. So Natalia will now face her BFF, Ronda Rousey, next Monday night on the pre-tape episode for the Raw Women's Championship. By the way, the pre-taped episode of Raw was taped immediately after Raw went off the air. So we're looking at nearly 5 hours of show here for the live audience. So that must have been crazy, insane for them. Over on SmackDown, we see Shane McMahon open up the show, speaking to the entire roster backstage, and basically announcing the removal of Paige as general manager, but assured that everyone that Paige was not going to go anywhere, just for now, not going to go anywhere, and would have a different role in the future. And my thought was, well, maybe she can be reunited with Absolution. Or seemingly overnight, when we were seeing the essential breakup between Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, it just went cold after Survivor Series. And we had TLC, nothing. They were rarely seen, if ever, on SmackDown episodes. So maybe make some rekindleship here with all members of Absolution. I know Paige is not cleared yet to medically wrestle, but she can be their mouthpiece. She can be their manager, which I think could have been or could have worked out had they stayed on Raw. But after the shakeup and Paige was hurt and was announced the GM of SmackDown, the rest of Absolution showed up anyway, so it can still be done. Still possible. Becky Lynch would come out and announce that he wants to face Ronda Rousey. All of a sudden, we get Charlotte Flair basically saying the same thing, going back and forth of how Ronda Rousey screwed them out of the SmackDown Women's title last Sunday night. Asuka would come out and basically show off and celebrate her newly won SmackDown Women's title. It was reported that Asuka was supposed to receive some kind of coronation. Either I missed it or it didn't happen. But this brought out Vince McMahon for the first time in a long time since we've seen him on a SmackDown episode, and basically told both Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch to get over it and that we need to move on. I guess ensuring the automatic rematch clause here, and not to mention the fact that they're both, all three women, Becky and Charlotte in particular, on one brand and Ronda is on the other. So maybe not want to jump the gun a little ahead of everything else that's already set in motion between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. So McMahon would open up the floodgates and have Asuka defend her newly won SmackDown title right there and there. And the challenger was Naomi. Interesting approach. Naomi, a former two-time SmackDown Women's Champion. But unfortunately, Asuka would retain via submission and make Naomi tap out. We see backstage The Miz asking Vince McMahon for his blessings to team up with Shane. But Miz needed to show his worth in a tag team match with a partner of Vince's choosing. And we will find out later on who that would be. It was promoted of Samoa Joe was going to apologize to Jeff Hardy about his comments made a week ago referring to his demons and his, for lack of a better term, his alcohol abuse. But Jeff Hardy has since then recovered and been clean, hopefully and thankfully. Instead, Jeff Hardy will come out first, cut a promo, and then confront Samoa Joe, pointing out that it's been 2 years since Joe has won a championship, and this upsets Joe, and a fight breaks out. And Joe leaves, no apology whatsoever, and this sets up for a match between the two next week on SmackDown. After the commercial break, we find out that The Miz's partner is Mandy Rose. Interesting. As they took on R-Truth and Carmella. And I'm getting the impression here that the Mixed Match Challenge, or at least the intergender matches, whatever they're calling, but I think they're going to, from now on, call them mixed match challenges or just mixed matches, at least until we get season 3 moving forward. And you know what? Along with other changes and differences here that we would see later on SmackDown. This I personally welcome. Definitely a nice change of pace, of direction, and it's different. I mean, we've seen it before, yes, but usually back in the day, especially during the Attitude Era and some during the Ruthless Aggression Era in and intergender or mixed match challenge matches, whatever, men and women would actually compete against each other. But nowadays they kind of tweak it a little bit where it's allowed only where the women can fight off the men and not vice versa. And yeah, definitely a nice change of pace here, and we'll see how this goes moving forward as part of the changes to come. But at the end, we see The Miz hit the Skull Crunch finale on, ironically, his former tag team partner in R-Truth, and The Miz and Mandy Rose get the win. The Usos would come out and cut a promo on the bar, requesting a tag team championship match against them. But instead, we get the Good Brothers of Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, who even they pointed out, who have not been seen on SmackDown since August. Where have they been? Good question. It's ridiculous as they've been off television that long. The Good Brothers, that is, would point out that for the past few weeks, few months, that it's nothing but Usos, New Day, and the Bar, and that the tag team championships on SmackDown have been pretty much bouncing around between them, and that it's time for the Good Brothers to step up and have their moment in the sun, so to speak. This led to a very good tag team match between the Usos and the Good Brothers, only for the Bar to cause a distraction. They didn't interfere. They just came down the rampway and caught the attention of all four men. And inside the ring, we will see Insanity return and jump both Usos and Good Brother teams, similar to how they debuted originally back on SmackDown, and beat down all four men, left them laying. They crossed paths with the Bar on the way out. The Bar would then enter the ring and beat up what was left of the Usos and the Good Brothers, I guess, to proclaim their dominance in the SmackDown tag team roster as they are the champions. So this would lead to an 8-man tag team match for next week's SmackDown episode, and I will cover that in a few. So I'll give a spoiler warning. No worries. Shinsuke Nakamura responded to Rusev's earlier promo, and that they will wrestle next week for the United States Championship match on Christmas Day. Daniel Bryan and André Cien Almas teamed up to take on AJ Styles and Mustafa Ali, who is now officially part of the SmackDown roster, moving up from 205 Live. And yes, we need more of these interpromotional, if you will, talent exchanges or whatnot. I mean, they both show up on the same, when SmackDown goes off the air, 205 will immediately air on the network. So why not mix them up more? Cruiserweights, heavyweights, or light heavyweights, whatever. Just mix them up a little more. This will bring more attention and more of the changes before they even made the promises of. And last week's match between Daniel Bryan and Mustafa Ali was amazing. And yeah, we need to see more of this. But at the end of the tag team match, Mustafa Ali would hit his 054, and a bit of a botch, I would say. Wasn't too clear. Had to watch it a couple of times, but it was definitely obvious that Bryan was hurt, as Mustafa's knees both were jammed into Bryan's sternum area, and Bryan cried out in pain. You saw a bit of hesitation in Ali, but he would still pin Bryan and get the win for his team with AJ Styles. And the storyline here is Mustafa Ali from 205 Live just pinned and defeated the WWE champion. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. And that's how they go off the air, as Styles and Ali was celebrating, and the SmackDown Live for next week's show immediately started taping when they went off the air. So if you do not want to know the results of next week's Raw and SmackDown pre-tape shows for Christmas, fast forward about 2 minutes, as I'm just going to quickly run through the results of both shows, who did what and where, and I will see you on the other side. So here we go. Spoiler warnings for next week's Raw and SmackDown pre-tape shows are as followed. Elias will defeat Bobby Lashley. Bobby Roode and Chad Gable will retain their Raw Tag Team titles versus The Revival. Finn Balor will defeat Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre in their triple threat match. Sasha Banks, Ember Moon, and Bayley defeated Alicia Fox, Dana Brooke, and Mickie James in a 6-woman tag team match. And after the match, the Riot Squad would beat up all the baby faces. Paul Heyman would come down to the ring and get on the microphone. Heyman talks about his client Brock Lesnar and then sings a Christmas carol about how Lesnar's going to beat up Strowman at the Royal Rumble. This will bring out Strowman to interrupt Heyman. We see Braun Strowman come down, not in a sling, and he talks trash to Paul Heyman about what he's going to do to Lesnar at the Rumble. And this makes Paul Heyman leave the ring. Ronda Rousey will defeat and retain her Raw Women's title against Natalya. And I'm going to say there was something of a storyline here with Heath Slater being reinstated as a wrestler, as he will defeat Jinder Mahal after assistance from Rhino, who was fired from Raw just a few weeks ago. Seth Rollins will defeat Baron Corbin in their grudge match with the curb stomp. And you know what? Keep an eye out for these empty seats towards the end of the main event here, as Raw was taped back-to-back once again. Over on SmackDown, the Usos and the Club defeated Sanity and The Bar in an 8-man tag. The R-Truth and Carmella will come out to the ring, get on the microphone, but Daniel Bryan quickly interrupted as Bryan and Truth will get into exchange words. And then Truth will say to Bryan that he might win the Royal Rumble and take his WWE title. And in an attempt to respond, R-Truth and Carmella cut off Bryan's response and a dance break. This made Bryan attack R-Truth and just left him laying in the ring. Mustafa Ali will defeat Andres Cien Almas, which I'm assuming was a great match. I will see that next week. DVR'd, actually. The Miz will have a Miz TV coming out with the World Cup trophy and introduces his guest as Shane McMahon. Shane will come out and just accepts the Miz offer to be a tag team. So we'll see where this goes and how. Jeff Hardy will defeat Samoa Joe via disqualification as Samoa Joe refused to release the Coquina Clutch on Hardy. And this should be the main event, as Rusev will defeat Shinsuke Nakamura and become the new United States champion in what many are calling as an upset to end SmackDown's Christmas episode. So thanks for coming back. Thanks to SE Scoops for all the results here. As there you go. Those are your rundowns for next week's Raw and SmackDown. And I'll have the full coverage next week as well, but obviously with more details and visuals. Well, visuals in my case, and I'll explain over the air as to how all the results came to be. In other news, speaking of Monday Night Raw, according to Showbuzz Daily, the Raw viewership went up about 15% compared to last week's all-time record low for Monday Night Raw, up an average of 2.547 million viewers, compared to last week's 2.193 million viewers. So a good way to end the year on a high note. I mean, that's almost a 3 if you think about it. But we should more than likely see a very significant drop. As again mentioned, the pre-tape shows, everyone at this point can look up the results as I just read them out loud. And curious to see what they will be. Hopefully not less than the all-time record low that's already been set. According to PW Insider, Jason Jordan is still working as a producer backstage for the WWE as he continues to recover from his long-term injury. And matter of fact, this is a fun fact actually, Jordan recently put together the women's gauntlet match alongside Tyson Kidd, which received high praise from everyone backstage, I should say. So kudos for Jason Jordan. He knows a little bit to make a suggestion and see something or put something on that we haven't seen in quite some time. And that's usually a good thing. So pat on the back for Jason Jordan and Tyson Kidd here. Bray Wyatt is set to return on the post-Christmas Raw live events, as the report suggests that his opponent during these live events could well be John Cena, who is scheduled to appear at least 13 different live events during the holiday season, but hasn't had an announced opponent yet. Wyatt recently posted up on his Twitter account very cryptic messages, leading many to wonder where his future would lie. But it appears as if his direction of sorts would continue on this current path but still leaving a lot of questions. And actually, he had a couple of tweets deleted for reasons beyond my comprehension. I'm not sure, but definitely curious to find out why eventually, if I come across it. In other news, there is indeed plans for Something to Wrestle With to return to the WWE Network next year, featuring both Bruce Pritchard and Comrade Thompson. The belief is that there will be a few adjustments made to the setup, with spring 2019 being the potential airtime in the aftermath of WrestleMania. According to The Blast, The Rock's proposed tequila brand hasn't worked out quite as well as he hoped for. His company filed documents for the term Mana, which would have been the name of his tequila brand, but the trade office already felt like it was too similar to other companies, unfortunately. The Rock, that is, pronouns pal. He can attempt to save the application by using new terms, but it doesn't seem as if that's what he'll do as the deadline to do so approaches. All this according to The Blast, by the way. Mana is a used term in Hawaiian and Polynesian culture and could be translated to spirit. The Rock has been often on his social media accounts enjoying a glass of tequila, his alcohol beverage of choice. So, hey, when you want to chill on Netflix or just binge watch an entire season of your favorite TV show, get me a shot too as well. Just a couple of more notes here, and a special announcement actually coming up next week. Ronda Rousey was in South America recently for the WWE's South American tour, as she was involved in a car accident in Lima, Peru, my family's home country. Thanks for visiting, Ronda. She revealed in her latest episode YouTube video blog and says that the accident occurred when another car hit the car that she was taken to the airport. It was just a minor accident and nobody was hurt, but Ronda's entertaining reaction to her driver yelling at the person who caused the accident is worth watching, and it definitely is. You can fast forward up into the 8.5-minute mark, and their faces were blurred out for protection. But if you understand Spanish, especially South American Spanish, you can hear the driver around this car go ham on the other guy who hit him from behind. And Ronda was with her sister at the time. And fender benders, and I've been involved with a few of them down there, similar to New York. They're exactly what they are, fender benders, but people can get upset, causing road rage. I don't think the driver around this car knew who he had as a passenger. But yeah, it was definitely entertaining. And coming from that background, yes, a lot of weekends wasted, but good times though. In some bad news of sorts, Cody Rhodes was the first to confirm, and now the Young Bucks have followed suit, as Matt Jackson confirmed by saying that he and his brother will not be at the G1 Supercard show between New Japan Pro Wrestling and Ring of Honor at the Madison Square Garden Supercard during WrestleMania week. However, Jackson did stay for us, the fans, that is, to stay positive, as he encouraged everyone to still go and attend and be part of this historic night for wrestling. And I completely agree with that statement. I know many were hoping for Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks. Didn't give a reason, at least not the Young Bucks did, as far as why they can't make it. Maybe scheduling conflicts with other shows, contract issues, who knows. But as of right now, they're not going to attend. And yeah, I mean, it's still history. It's still giving, the oomph to WWE that weekend. Had it not been for the Supercard show, they would not make the changes that they eventually did by switching around the Hall of Fame and the NXT show. So it benefits everyone if you're a fan. And if you have an opportunity to at least attend the NXT and the Supercard show, I say by all means, go do it. You'll be exhausted by Monday, but it'll be a worth exhaustion. And if you're really planning ahead, you might want to call out of work. Just a suggestion. So as I wrap up here, just want to quickly announce next week, along with the JM Report, I will have another episode of Talking with JM, and my special guest will be Hollywood from the original Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, as she would call in to the studios, and we will have a nice little chat of her beginnings, how she got into Glow, into the business herself, and basically what she's been up to ever since. And according to my research, it's been a lot. This is a rescheduled show, as the previous schedule was postponed, as unfortunately Hollywood fell ill, was not up for it. Not to mention, shortly before that happened, her father had recent successful knee surgery at the time, and she's all good to go. I recently reached out to her earlier in the week, doing really well. Curious to see exactly where she'd be, what part of the country, because she's constantly traveling. But yes, it's all confirmed for next week. And guys, let me know. As a matter of fact, if you have any other questions I could ask Hollywood next week, leave them down in the comment section below. And as always, subscribe across the board on social media. Everything's listed in the description. And if you like what you hear, click that like button. And as always, you can always subscribe to the Good Old JM channel here on YouTube. So until then, I want to say for everyone to enjoy the upcoming festivities, the upcoming holidays. Merry Christmas. And I will be here next week, post-Christmas show, to bring in the new year for a little while with you guys on the next episode of the JM Report. And I just want to say a quick thank you for everyone for all their support and love since I started this roughly a few months ago. But, you know, everything's still a work in progress. I just want to let you know that there are still good times ahead and a lot more to come from yours truly. So once again, everyone, thank you.